Welcome to our first week's orientation. My name's Adam Pittaway and I'll be presenting today, and joining me is David Tom.
Yes, hello everyone and welcome to our first week's orientation. So we'll just quickly go over what will be covered in this presentation. We're going to have a look at the structure of the academic week and give you some navigation advice. We're going to show you how to find your module and how to become an active student, which is very important. We're going to go through some of the assignments that you're going to have in these first few weeks and how to submit them using Turnitin. Very importantly, we're going to define what we mean by participation in your module. We're going to look quickly at the online library and how you register for it. And then we are going to look at how you can approach some of those assignments and also your citing and referencing skills.
Okay, so firstly, let's look at the structure of an academic week. With the University of Liverpool, the week starts on a Thursday and will run through to the following Wednesday. You often will hear it called day 1, 2, 3, etc., all the way through to day 7.
Yes, exactly. So maybe when you see deadlines, it'll say is due on day 3 or is due on day 7. So obviously day 3 then will be Saturday and day 7 will be Wednesday. So moving on average our students, they say they spend about 20 hours each week in their studies, but that's more when they're settled into their studies and they've got through the first few weeks. So don't be worried if you spend a little bit more than 20 hours in the first couple of weeks. You're still settling in, getting used to the online platform, and maybe you haven't studied for a while, so everything is coming back to you a bit slowly. But as you ease into the course, about 20 hours is normal to be spending on your studies.
Absolutely. Workload will vary dependent on your program, so do check your module syllabus. But as David mentioned, do expect to spend a little bit more time in these first weeks because you're learning a lot more than just what's in the classroom. You're learning all the systems and how the classroom functions around that. You can have 1 or 2 discussion questions a week dependent on your program, and we'll be talking a little later about participation, but this is also a very important requirement. Yeah,
and so just to reiterate again, very important, one of the first things you do, and we'll show you how to do it in a few slides time, but go in and check your class syllabus for all the detailed workloads and deadlines. So quickly, we're just going to show you how to find your module. Once you've logged into your my.ohecampus.com homepage and clicked on Blackboard, similar to what you did when you were accessing the Student Readiness Orientation, just go into your My Institution page as seen here on the screen and go to the My Courses box and then click into the class in which you were enrolled.
Absolutely. And another point is that your Student Readiness Orientation will also be in your My Courses box for the next 6 months, so you can go back and practice things if you feel that you need a little bit more help in certain areas.
Yep, and that's a great idea to do that in case you're a little bit nervous or unsure about how to submit things in the class. You can go and you can make those mistakes in the Student Readiness Orientation
without
class.
having to worry about being in a real environment.
Exactly. So navigating in the classroom. So we can see here your control panel on the left-hand side of your classroom is going to look very similar to this. The top option is announcements. Now, every time you log into your classroom, the first thing you're going to see in the center of the screen is the announcements. So it's always important to check those announcements for communication from your instructor and also from your student advisor.
Absolutely. We keep mentioning a lot, but the syllabus, a very important document. Please make sure you go into the syllabus link, download a copy, and go through it when you have a chance.
Yes. Now, discussion board. This option is going to give you a link to every discussion board that is in your classroom. And we'll just see what we're talking about in the next few slides. But it's very important you go in, familiarize yourself, look at how to use those discussion boards. And now the next one, contact instructor, is also very important, isn't it, Adam?
Absolutely. You'll need to go into the contact instructor link when you need to communicate with your instructor, or even your classmates if you're doing some group work. Yes. You'll also find all your feedback for that week under that link.
Exactly. So very important. It's like your in-class email system. Now you can see here, week 1 in this particular class, we've shown you where you'll find the learning resources here and also how you would go to that specific discussion question and links to that form and the Turnitin links by clicking on discussions 1 here. But maybe we'll move on to the next slide and we'll show you first how to become an active student. Now, every time you start a new module, whether it's your first or your 5th or your 8th or whichever, you're going to have to acknowledge the rules set by the university, so that'll be your academic honesty declaration, and you're also going to have to present yourself to the rest of the classrooms. Now, you need to follow these steps each time to become what we call an active student.
Absolutely, and it's just like using any other discussion board in your classroom. We've highlighted the threads for you, so you can see that by clicking on that thread, it'll take you into the area, and for the post your biography, you simply talk a little bit about yourself,
Yes.
maybe where you're from, your work history, why you're doing your degree, and you submit that, and that shows that you're in class. The second one is the Academic Honesty Declaration. You open the link, you go through to the thread, and you reply, and you say, I accept and agree this declaration and the date, and you submit that.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, you shouldn't just sign the Academic Honesty Declaration. You should go through it and read it. It's quite important. There's some good information that will help you as you go through the class in terms of what you can and can't do in your work. Okay, so discussion questions. Discussion questions really form the fundamental part of each week in your module. Depending on what class you're in, you're going to have 1 or 2 per week. And that is the starting point of the follow-on participation that we've already touched on a little bit. Now, there is weekly deadlines for discussion questions. They're typically due on a Saturday by midnight, and that's always your local time. In fact, every deadline you have, it'll always be at midnight no matter what day it is, and it's always your local time wherever you are in the world. Now, your initial response to the weekly discussion question or questions must be submitted to both Turnitin and the assigned area of the discussion board, like you can see on this example here.
By submitting it to the discussion board, you're allowing your classmates to read what you have submitted, and then that moves into the participation element that we'll be talking about shortly, where you can go through, look at other people's views, and respond to them.
Yeah, exactly. So next we're just going to show you quickly how you submit through Turnitin. Now, when you're in, say, your week 1 discussion question, by clicking on discussions 1 like we saw on the control panel a few slides ago, you'll notice what you see at the top of this screen here, the 2 different Turnitin links. The one that says draft week 1 discussion question initial response Turnitin, and then the one that does not say draft. Now, the difference between those is the draft, like it's suggested in the name, is a practice. And so you can submit through that your work that you've done for that week, and then view the Turnitin report before your final submission, so before it goes to the instructor.
That allows you to make changes, doesn't it, David, in case you find any citation referencing mistakes, and it won't be submitted to the Turnitin database.
Exactly. So if you've, for example, read through the Academic Honesty Declaration and you see about the policy on using too many quotes, and then you have a high Turnitin percentage, and you go to and after you've used the draft link, and then you see that maybe you've used too many quotations, you can go back to your Word document, make the changes that you deem necessary, and then go and use that second link there, the one that we're referring to as the final submission link, i.e. it does not say draft. Now, important to note that you can only use each link once.
So that's a good point, isn't it? So if you do want to make those changes, you have to make sure that they're final and it's the way you want it to be.
Exactly. So this is how you then submit. You click on the View Complete link for whichever, doesn't matter which one that you're going to submit to. And you can see on the bar here, the second bar, you just click on Submit again, and then this Submit Paper by File Upload option will come up. Most of the details should already be filled in for you. You'll probably just have to give it a submission title. And then you can browse for your Word document or wherever you've saved it, very much like attaching an email, something to an email, and then just click on Upload.
Upload, and then it goes into Turnitin,
and
it goes to the instructor.
Exactly. And now we'll have a quick look at how you can view that Turnitin report.
So you go back to the View Complete link, give it 5 to 10 minutes approximately so it uploads, then go back to that View Complete link and you'll see the bar that we've presented here at the top. Now you have 2 options to get into your report. You can either press the View button or you can actually click directly on your percentage. You can see that this person here had 14% in total. Now 14% is the amount of work that is matched to external sources that Turnitin has picked up on. So that could be other papers, it could be books, it could be a multitude of different things.
And those external sources are in Turnitin's database. There's millions of pieces of work in there, from books to articles to other students' works. So yes, it's very, very extensive. So you can see when it comes up, if there's no percentage, like that 14% there automatically there, click on where it says originality. You can see we've circled it in red on the left-hand side here, and then this match overview will come up.
And each number represents the source that it is matched, with the number 1 being the highest, obviously.
Yes, exactly. Now, everything that you've quoted will come up, and authors that you may have just referred to or paraphrased, but also commonly used industry terms, and phrases will come up. If you've included the actual question that you're answering, that's normally highlighted as well, and also your reference list.
Yeah.
So it's important to look through the report and really translate it and see what is really included in it and what's important to maybe you have to change and what's not.
Yep, absolutely. But the thing to remember, I guess, is if you've cited and referenced correctly, then you haven't plagiarized.
Exactly.
Defining participation. Now, we've been talking a lot about participation as we've been going through the slides.
Yeah.
It's a very important component, and in these early weeks, often a lot of students forget about it because they don't realize actually how important it is, and it can often be highly graded too, can't it, David?
It can. Sometimes it can be worth as much as the initial response to the discussion questions themselves. So it's very important, again, to check the syllabus and make sure that you're meeting all the participation requirements. But what we really mean by participation is the way in which you're engaging in the classroom discussion, right? And it, like Adam said, it's very important, and it really will go a long way to determining your success within this module as well. So it's very important. Now, most courses, but by no means all, so make sure that you know the requirements first, want a minimum of 3 to 5 follow-on participation postings, not including the initial response, on the discussion board, and those should be spread out over 3 different days of the academic week.
Absolutely. And so do check the syllabus if you have any concerns or are not sure how much or how often you need to participate. Now, to participate is very simple. It's using the discussion board again, like we mentioned earlier. You can see we've put a little picture at the bottom here, which is outlining all the different posts by different students. You go through, you read them. If one interests you, then you press reply and you participate and you respond.
Exactly. And I think that students, a really good thing for the new students that I work with, is that they should treat the participation the same as the deadline.
Yeah.
So if you have a discussion question and it's due on Saturday night, make sure that you get it submitted on Saturday night. Make sure that you treat your follow-on participation the same way. So you look through your weekly schedule, see the days that you can submit, and treat those like deadlines. Okay.
Hand-in assignments, which is another very important aspect of the classroom. The difference between hand-in assignments and discussion questions is that the hand-in assignment does not go onto the discussion board. It simply goes through the Turnitin and goes directly for grading to the instructor. Again, you'll have a draft option which you can use, but make sure you use draft and final or just the final. Now, typically they are due on Wednesday and will always be midnight your local time. In some programs, the students may even need to do group work to complete a hand-in assignment.
Yep, exactly. And then you'll all be submitting different parts or be going to the same link. So, and with questions on hand-in assignments or discussion questions or these things we've gone through in this part of the presentation, you can ask the instructor through that contact instructor option or the student advisor who's allocated to your class. So online library registration. So if you're just in the first couple of days of your course, it's very important to note that you will not be able to register for the online library till day 5 or day 6 of week 1. So if, for example, you're listening to this on the very first day of your course, which will be a Thursday, you won't be able to register until Monday or Tuesday at the earliest.
And when you can register, you'll get an invitation that will be sent to your My.OHE Campus email account. You simply follow the instructions to complete the registration. We've provided here a small picture for you. It might be hard to see, but you go through the registration process by filling out the form. You put in your surname and your card number. The card number is your student ID with a capital L in front, your date of birth, and the capture code, as you can see on the screen. Now, do remember, though, that the information that you place in the form must be identical to what you signed up to the University of Liverpool with. Otherwise, it will reject you because it doesn't recognise the details.
Exactly. So make sure you're using your surname exactly the way that you've given it to us when you registered with us. And then when you get through this next, this self-registration, step 1, and you get to step 2, it'll give you your username, but then you will have to create your own password. And it's very important that you write both username and password down, because it will not be emailed to you at any email address afterwards for security reasons. And
you will need to change your password every 90 days.
Okay, good to remember. So now we're going to look a little bit at how you can approach your assignments and write your responses to discussion questions, for example.
So it's very important that when you are approaching the assignments that you firstly analyze the question.
So this is just some advice. Of course, you don't have to follow this, but maybe it's helpful to you if you've been out of study for a long time. So first, read the question and identify the key words to really understand that question. So this is just one example that we've used here. Yours discussion questions may be different, but there's very clear keywords in here, such as organizational behavior and the benefit in studying it and the things that are related to it, and then how you can bring that to your own experience or your own organization. So using those keywords is going to help you to outline how you're going to answer the question.
The weekly reading materials and learning resources are another great thing that you should be using as often as possible when you're constructing your assignments. Make sure that you're going through, you're reading what's been provided to you, and again, going back to the last slide, that you're picking up on those key words and often jotting down notes as you go along, because that's going to help you with completing your discussion questions and completing your assignments in later weeks, because you can often refer back again as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now, there's going to be lots of different weekly readings in your learning resources within each week in the control panel in the classroom, and sometimes they will be chapters in your textbooks or certain passages in your textbook, and other times there'll be articles that are hosted in our online library. Now, a good tip is to always, whenever you finish reading a chapter of a book or articles, and maybe there's other authors referred to in there that you liked, go through the bibliography or the reference list of what you've just read and find those authors. It's going to give you a link then to other information on the same topic, maybe that's reiterating something that you've read or maybe giving a contrasting viewpoint. So that's often a good starting point to find other material on the same subject.
Absolutely. There's one point there that I like, David, that says don't try and read everything at once, prioritize.
Yes.
A lot of students, especially in the first weeks, when they first get into class, they tend to get so excited that they overload themselves.
Exactly.
So step back, take your time, analyze, and go through things in a timely manner.
Yeah, and if you do have a lengthy reading list in any particular week, sometimes it can be good to just read through, if it's available, the abstract of, say, if you have 6 articles. Take a moment to read through the abstract. It's usually just one paragraph. See which ones stand out to you, the ones that you like the most that might be able to help you answer the discussion question the way you want, and then read those first.
Or utilize skim reading too.
Exactly.
Researching. Now, researching can be a bit tricky for some new students, especially if they haven't done so in quite some time.
Very true.
When you get into the University of Liverpool library, you'll be trying to find a lot of articles and journals, so you can write, obviously, your assignments and your discussion questions. So again, make sure that you're using research that will back up your ideas and your thoughts, and often that will come from what we call a peer-reviewed source.
Yes. Now, as I'll just repeat what it says on the slide here. A peer-reviewed source, such as a journal article, a textbook, or an ebook, is a source that has been evaluated professionally by experts and colleagues in the field before it has been published, and of course then it is published. Now, they are what should, so sources such as that should form the basis of your research. Now, you can also use websites, and sometimes websites and the information there can also be peer-reviewed, because it can be companies and they have a lot of information and papers that come from conferences, for example, a lot of data on their websites as well that you can use as well, and that's fine too.
Absolutely. So make sure that you're using your peer-reviewed articles as your primary source, and then, as David says, backing up with other sources such as websites or textbooks.
Exactly.
Another key tip that we often give to students is search by keywords. Now, David spoke a little bit about that in our previous slide, but it's picking out those important words, maybe from your weekly readings or from a textbook, and then putting those into the search engine of the library's database to see what you get back.
Yeah. And now, further reading, like I've already mentioned, but if you find an author who is helpful, try searching their name, or if you found an author within a reading that you found helpful as well, try searching their name or looking at the reference list and searching for that piece of work. And you know, that'll contain lots of other related material. So all of these tips are very useful. So some research tips with the UOL online library. So here you can access lots of online journals ebooks and archival materials through different databases like EBSCO and Google Scholar. Now remember, only use the keywords when you're searching, and check the abstracts of the results you think might suit your research. So what we mean by keywords, if you're not searching for something like in a particular article or a particular author, for example, just type in something like strategic organization or effective project management. Try to avoid using the small words like the or and or, because that'll expand your search. So just use the keywords like we'd mentioned earlier.
Absolutely. And of course, once you do find something that you're interested in, don't try and read the whole thing on your screen. Download it, save it on your computer, so eventually you have a collection. Then you can go back and skim through them individually after you've downloaded them to your computer.
Yes, great tip. So this is just some tips now on how to structure your assignment. Like we said, you don't have to do this. This is just helpful for some students who may not have studied for a while. So you should definitely have an introduction, no matter what you're writing. I think
absolutely. You always have to have an introduction. So you're talking briefly about what you'd like to include, an example of your understanding of organizational behavior, as we said in the example here. It's basically, again, introducing the theory, the idea, what it is you're going to talk about.
Yep. And then after that, your controlling idea. So what's your main proposal, the idea, the main theory that you plan to prove or disprove? And here you might just give a little bit of description about it before you get into the real body to explain your main ideas, to really go through the theory that you're trying to get through, and you express a number of ideas, and make sure that you cover everything that you've already introduced and put into the controlling idea as well.
That's where the bulk of your information should go.
Exactly. Now, in the body, you can also put in some opposing views. So and so has said this, but so-and-so has said this, which contradicts it, and then you can make up your mind, of course, which you're going to support, and then you can evidence that through your research as well. And then what are the final conclusions that you're going to draw? So you have a final argument. I think it's important in the conclusion not just to summarize everything that you've already said, because then you're not really concluding anything. So try to bring your argument or your theory or whatever it is you're trying to say to a good close. And I always find when I'm writing my assignments as well that once I've finished, to read it back to myself out loud sometimes, making sure it flows and making sure that I've really proved my point, or that I've given enough evidence to maybe suggest that I have proved my point in there. So that's always a good tip, to read it back to yourself.
So when and how to use references. So this is a really important section, I think, because a lot of our students actually struggle with citation and referencing. Now we have a few tips here that we can help you. Now any quote, even if expressed indirectly or a paraphrase, is something that you need to reference.
Yes. Any evaluative or argumentative statement which originates with another writer or writers also. So it's a bit like paraphrasing.
Yeah.
So idea that you're putting across, it's not a direct quote, but it is someone else's idea. You still need to give them credit for that by including their name and the year of publication in your in-text citation, for example.
Yep, any statement of fact or item of data which is not generally known, you have to reference that as well.
And then using references to compare different writers' points of view, and especially to indicate that you're aware of other writers' arguments that support or contradicts yours. It's important that, again, that you're referencing all of these kind of things. So we have some 3 basic rules that we call the big 3 that you can use as a starting point to develop your citing and referencing skills. So using quotation marks, always if it's a direct quote. Then after the direct quote, the in-text citation, also when you're paraphrasing, and then at the end, very important, to give a full reference within your reference list.
Absolutely. We often explain the big 3 to students on the phone because we think it's a great way to remember. But I think we could sum it up also, David, by saying you need to cite and reference anything that's not your own words or your own work.
Yes.
I think that makes it much easier for our students to understand.
Exactly. And now this picture we have here of Cite Them Right, very, very good book. Very simply explained how to cite and reference in a few different styles, but primarily the Harvard style, which is what the vast majority of our courses with the University of Liverpool online use. And it's very, very simply explained each resource that you could possibly cite and reference from, and an example how to do it and how to put it in your reference list as well, and then it just moves on to the next example. So it's very, very well done, and it's quite cheap as well. I think it's about around 10 to 15 English pounds.
Yep, and it's widely available too. Most major booksellers will have a copy.
Good.
So to sum up what we've spoken about today, firstly, how to plan for your studies. Very important as a new student. Make sure you take the time to plan out your study week and that you block time when you're going to dedicate to that.
That you know now how to become an active student, so you post your personal introduction, read and sign the Academic Honesty Declaration, then go and look at the requirements for the week. You can do this by doing our favourite thing, which is to have a look at the syllabus. And then also you can review this and see how you're going to approach your assignments. And we'd also like to remind you as well, if you're listening to this presentation in your first week or two and you haven't ordered your textbooks yet or you haven't received them yet, please don't delay. You should order them as soon as you can. Use our online bookstore, the link is here, or contact your enrollment or your student advisor for more information if for any reason that you can't order them yourself.
So thank you very much for your time and thank you for listening to this presentation. We hope you found it useful.
Yes, thank you very much and good luck in your first weeks. And if you have any questions, please don't be afraid to reach out to your student support.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.